So in this video, we're going to talk about monopolistic competition. So monopolistic competition. And we're going to talk about how to model that in our cost curve model that we've been using to talk about each of the 4 different kinds of industries. So let's get our marginal cost and average total cost curves. That's all ready. Now we need our Mr. DARP, right? We need our demand and marginal revenue curves. Remember that with monopolistic competition, that this is a firm that had some control over its price. It has a monopoly basically on its own good. So it has a downward sloping demand curve. And the way you can think about this is what makes something monopolistic competition is that each of these sellers has a monopoly of their own good. So they may not have a monopoly on the entire market, but they're the only one that can sell that good. So a good example is McDonald's. Thinking about the market for hamburgers, there are many sellers selling hamburgers out there, but if you want a Big Mac, there is only one place you can go. McDonald's has a monopoly on the Big Mac, even if they don't have the monopoly on hamburgers. So that's why they've got that downward sloping demand curve. Now, anytime you have a downward sloping demand curve, a downward sloping marginal revenue curve. Right? And that downward sloping marginal revenue curve, the marginal revenue is always less than your demand curve. That's because, just like in a monopoly, if they want to sell one more good, they have to lower their price on not just the next good, but every unit they sell. They can't price discriminate. Okay, so now we've got the setup. It looks a lot like a monopoly. And in fact, we go about finding price and quantity that will be charged in this market in the same way we did with the monopoly. So let's do that. Let's find the profit maximizing quantity. It's where marginal revenue and marginal cost intersect. So that's our profit max quantity. Then we go up to our demand curve to find the monopolistically competitive price. Our next step is to figure out whether this firm is making a profit. So we go up for that quantity, go up to our average total cost curve. That's okay, well, that's the cost per unit. That is the average total cost of producing that quantity. So price is higher than average total cost, so sure enough, they're making a profit. And our next step is to figure out whether or not there's any allocative inefficiency. Are they allocatively efficient? Right? Do they charge a markup or not? Is price greater than marginal cost? Well, let's figure that out. Let's go and find out what the marginal cost is. Well, there's our marginal cost curve. So that is our marginal cost of that quantity, and sure enough, price is higher than marginal cost, so we've got some deadweight loss there. Okay. So let's look at our outcomes so far. Right? We have a firm that is earning economic profit, right, because price is greater than average total cost. In fact, if we wanted to, we could even shade that in. That's your economic profit right there. So they are earning economic rents. They are allocatively inefficient, so that's not ideal. And are they producing efficient scale? No. Right? Where the marginal cost curve intersects the average total cost curve, that is your efficient scale quantity, so they're not producing that either. So far, it looks identical to a monopoly, which is maybe why it's called monopolistic competition. There's an element of monopoly to it. Now here's where things get a little bit interesting. What makes a monopolistically competitive industry different from a monopoly are that there are no barriers to entry. So in a monopoly, this was our short-run picture. It was also our long-run picture. Nothing changed. But for a monopolistically competitive industry, things are going to change. So let's talk about what exactly is going to change in that picture. When new firms enter, a monopolistically competitive industry, those new firms take away some of the demand from the existing firms. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a city where on any given Monday afternoon, right, there are 10,000 hamburgers that are sold. And let's say there are 100 firms selling those 10,000 hamburgers. Well, that means each of these 100 firms, each of these firms is selling 100 burgers each. That's pretty straightforward, right? Well, what happens if one more firm enters? Then those 10,000 burgers are being sold by 101 firms. So now each of them are selling about roughly 99 burgers. Right? There's actually 0.01, but you get the idea. So this is something called the business stealing externality. So these existing 100 firms, they had nothing to do with the other firm entering, but all of a sudden there's another firm knocking down their business. Now, what that business stealing externality means in our graph is that demand for this firm, so this firm's demand curve will decrease. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, wait a second. You said before that when a new firm enters, supply shifts. That's correct. The market supply shifts. But let's go back to our graph here. Our supply curve is the marginal cost curve. Okay? This individual firm's supply curve is their marginal cost curve. Their costs aren't changing. The price of burger buns didn't increase. The only thing that changed is there's one more firm. So yeah, in a market, the market supply will increase as the number of sellers go up. But this is not a market picture. This is an individual firm's picture. So as a result, the demand for this firm is going to go down. So let's see what that looks like on that picture. Well, actually that one's a little messy. Let's draw a new one. So we have demand. So our average total cost curve, marginal costs. Let's make our initial demand and marginal revenue curve black. And we'll make our new demand curve orange, but also the new marginal revenue curve orange. Okay, let's go about notice here that both of these curves, right, both of these curves shifted, right, they both decreased. So now all we need to do is find the new profit maximizing quantity. Price. Right, so that's our new quantity and price. Are they making a profit? Well, they're still making a profit. Right. Now, are they charging a markup? Sure enough, they're charging a markup. So when new firms entered, the demand shifted to the right, demand shifted to the left, it decreased. The price, notice that the price did go down. Well, that was nice. So price went down compared to what it was before, but this firm is still earning profits. Now remember, there are no barriers to entry. So this story isn't over yet. Another hamburger firm is going to enter because there's opportunities to make profits. In fact, this will keep happening until there is no incentive for a firm to enter. Well, there's no incentive for a firm to enter when there are no economic profits. So let's sketch what a monopolistically competitive model looks like in the long run. So we've got our average total cost, marginal cost, demand, marginal revenue. So let's find marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. That's our profit maximizing quantity. That's our price. Let's see if they're earning a profit for that quantity. Go up to the average total cost curve. Oh, look. Price is equal to average total cost. No profits in the long run. Are they charging a markup? Let's see. For that quantity, let's go up to marginal cost. That's marginal cost. Sure enough, they're still charging a markup. So it is still allocatively inefficient. In the long run and in the short run, monopolistically competitive firms are allocatively inefficient. So what's our outcomes? We have no economic profits, so not so nice for the sellers of these goods. We have deadweight loss, not so good for society because that's the inefficiency loss. Are they at least producing at an efficient scale? No. In fact, they're producing a lot less than efficient scale. In fact, we have a special word for that too. There's a difference between what they're producing and what they could be producing. That's called excess capacity. Right? That's basically like a lot of factories laying idle that could be put to work and it would lower costs, but they're not doing that because they don't have any incentive to do so. So they have excess capacity. So it's kind of the worst of all worlds. So why is this the most common? Because we like variety. We would be sad if we lived in a world with just one kind of hamburger.